All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, what is up? Thank you for being here tonight. Welcome to Comic Book Radio. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. This is episode 118. And my guest tonight is Kat ROCHA. She's coming back here. The cat returns. We're talking about cryptids, cryptozoology, culture, all that good stuff. Man, oh man, it's going to be a good one. Can you think of cryptids in books, comics, movies, TV? I bet you can. I bet you can. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. All right, we got Imega Arts is here. What's up, Imega Arts? Hope you're doing good. Unhinged wants to You want a 5-hour stream? I wish. I can't. Physically, there's no way. There's no way. I don't know how people do it. Once it hits 3, I'm like grasping for dear life. 1 hour or so. 1 hour or so today. Bobo, what's up, Bobo? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. Sierra Volta is obvious. Thank you for being here too tonight. Frederick is here in the house. What's up, Frederick? Look, there's Kat also on the chat, the panel. She's everywhere tonight. Look at that. Yan Zhao, hope you're doing good. Thank you for being here, man. The Beam Pad is here. What's up? Hope you're having a great night, Real JBC. Hope you're doing good. I got a cup of coffee, let me tell you. Creators Outlet, how you doing? Hail nerds and then the bad word. Dr. Mask, what's up? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here tonight, too. Grape Nuka-Cola in the chat. What's up, Grape Nuka-Cola? H is for Heretic. How's it going? We got Undead Quinn here, too, as well. What's up? Tawide, or Taweld. Taweld? Ambassador. What's up? Thank you for being here. AL, hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here also tonight. Okay, without further ado, let's bring her on. Actually, you know what? That's a lie. Okay, we got Maddock. And thank you for being here. But we also, I wanted to talk about, 1 second. 9 days to go on Alterna's winter apparel. We're at 51% of our funding goal raised. 51%. So we got 9 days left. Make sure, if you want to get one of those blankets, hoodies, beanies, or mugs, make sure to pre-order yours before the 27th. We're not going to print a lot of extras, and the extras we do print are going to be limited only to the most popular items and sizes. So keep that in mind. If you're holding out hope that we're going to print a lot extra of something or whatever it may be, that will not be the case. And this is just the 2023 lineup. We're not reprinting these in the future. So if you do want to get yours, check them out. All right. Now that the ado has been done. Shrek, what's up? Shrek, thank you for being here tonight. Give a big round of applause to a return guest. Yeah, it was a good one last time. It's going to be a good one this time. Miss Kat ROCHA. What's up, Kat?
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you for being here. It's going to be fun.
This is going to be awesome. I've really been looking forward to this. I will have one warning. I've been a little under the weather, so I may have to mute myself while I cough or something like that. But this should be good.
You okay?
Oh, yeah. No. Just earlier in the week, I got the cold that's going around, and, I've got a lingering cough, so I'll be fine.
Gotcha. All right, no problem. Well, thank you for being here then, despite the fact of not feeling too great. Look at that.
Nope. Actually, I feel great. It's just the cough.
Oh, okay. Even better then. Good. Man, oh man. So last time we covered a whole lot, and then we started getting into this topic, and, I realized that we need a whole other show to cover it. We might even need another one down the line.
We need all the shows, quite frankly.
So, man, tonight I'm trying to narrow it down to keeping it just within cryptids in culture, as opposed to let's just dive into every single thing about cryptids and holy smokes. So limiting it to books, movies, comics, TV, that kind of a thing.
Hmm.
Um, I'll just get this one right out of the gate here. What are some of your favorite cryptids that have been featured in culture?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, of course, I somebody already in the chat already brought up the Mothman, and I find the Mothman fascinating because it's a relatively recent cryptid, and, only within the last like 75 years or so. But what the Mothman is seems to change depending on who's talking about him and what decade you're in. He used to be a portent of ill fortune, and I suppose he still is, but at the same time, he's also kind of been turned into just a regular, monster that like pops out at people. And I think that that really is more in line with what age group is looking at him.
Yeah, it's interesting with the Mothman because it seems like people keep trying to update him for modern audiences.
Hmm. Indeed, they do, and I find that interesting on a psychological level, how people are doing that, especially with like, of course, everybody's very familiar with the Mothman prophecies, but the fact that the Mothman prophecies, what's in them, he made up completely, and now it's become canon.
Yeah, yeah, he took a lot of license
Hmm.
with the
Yeah.
various things to kind of construct that narrative.
That's putting it politely, but how it started with the portent of bridges falling or other bad things happening to people. I thought that was interesting because that's more supernatural or psychological. And then after the Mothman prophecies, he's become more of a creature. So.
Yeah, yeah. And it strikes me as a bit odd how people don't think maybe they're just different things.
Hmm.
Maybe they're just different things. Maybe they sort of can look alike, but they're different. Yeah, I see this a lot of the time with Bigfoot when I've talked to some people over the
Hmm.
years who think that it's literally just one creature that's, here, there, or everywhere, as opposed to maybe there's just a lot of them.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it really is. It is interesting how the Mothman has seemed to evolve over time, or at least change, and people are interpreting it in ways that they want to.
Hmm.
But the original one, as far as I know anyway, goes back to the West Virginia Mothman back in I think it was 66, 67, something like that. And when the bridge fell.
Correct. That's my knowledge of him. But in doing research, you could make the argument that, I mean, besides the idea that it's really a barn owl or it's really an actual animal that people are seeing at night, the legends of creatures that look like Mothman showing up, not only in this country but other country, that fit the same description go back centuries.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Gargoyles, bat people. When you really get down to the nitty gritty, they all have the exact same description. Human body, large wings, red glowing eyes, seen in the dark, and oftentimes bad things happen around that.
It
So,
even sounds like some depictions of biblical angels as well.
mhm, it does. It really does. So, I find that very fascinating. How
Yeah.
it is something that's carried through, and we just have different names for it.
Yeah, 'cause I remember the first time when I had read about it and how it was interpreted. I'm like, that almost sounds like they're interpreting something like the angel Gabriel,
Hmm.
where it's this messenger. And you don't know, are they delivering a message or are they creating the thing that's occurring?
And that is a good question. And again, that's up to interpretation.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We got a couple people in the chat that are chiming in with some really great stuff here.
Hmm.
Paul says, they ever figure out the Montauk Monster? We had a clear photo of that one too. I mean, I've heard the interpretations of the Montauk Monster being all over the place. but there's so many different things that don't really add up with that one. Are you familiar with the Montauk monster?
That sounds really familiar, but I will be 100% honest. I binged a whole mess of cryptids in preparation. In fact, rereading all of my notes that I wrote, God, 10 years ago, actually. So everything's kind of all jumbled in a blur. Ah, the Montauk Monster. Okay, perfect. It's these one of the ones that washed up in New York is probably linked to Plum Island. Yeah.
Yeah, with the
Uh,
experiments that were being
mhm.
done and that, and then there's the other explanation that they think it's just kind of like a wild dog or something, and it was all bloated and decomposing, and but it doesn't really look and match up with the skeletal structure or even the body shape
No, it
of a dog.
doesn't. But the other thing is that that's not the only one that washed up. A bunch of carcasses washed up.
Yeah,
So
very
that it
true.
so that's that's questionable. Um, Now, I mean, we know what was going on Plum Island, so the question there is what types of experiments were going on. But I do have to say that I do find when weird carcasses wash up, I find that fascinating because it's then everybody gets to play the favorite game of what is this animal?
Yeah,
And try to figure out, is it something new? Is it not? A lot of sea monsters that show up. That's always fun. So,
yeah,
and
and
some,
what's sorry to cut you off. I was going to say
no,
what's fascinating to me is the fact that there are a lot of animals now that are classified, and we know what
hmm
they are, but we thought they were cryptids for a while. I
hmm
mean, the platypus, the Komodo dragon, the giant panda. It kind of goes on and on.
well, can you blame them for the platypus? I mean, come on, it's like, it's a beaver that's a duck.
I'm telling you, I saw what I saw.
Like, yeah, yeah, and how much rum did you have? Uh-huh.
Exactly. That little funny creature. But yeah, it's interesting when it comes to that. But there's a lot of stuff where it's based in certain areas where, like with the Montauk monster, where
hmm
there were things going on. There's a lot of things going on. I think people aren't necessarily aware of in terms of experimentation across the
hmm
board, and sometimes when that either escapes or is dumped or whatever it may be, and it washes up, it's not quite as easy to explain. I saw someone in the chat had said that they figured out maybe it was a raccoon. It's just it doesn't look like a raccoon. It
No, it doesn't.
No.
But then again, animals decay in very strange ways when you expose them to water, especially salt water. I mean, again, if you look at a lot of the uh, sea monsters that will get caught up in fishing nets or other things like that, you pull them out and they look like plesiosaurs, but when you really get down to the make of them or just the skeletal remains, it turns out no, it's a whale, or no, it's a dolphin. It's something that's known, but it doesn't rot the same way it would on land. So therefore, things get lost or things get uh, uh, to not get too graphic, basically, Sinu has it hanging in weird places that our brains fill in the gaps and say, oh, that's where the jaw is, or that's where the eyeball is. And really, it's not.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's kind of like looking at zombie movies and
hmm
then trying to figure out what did they look like when they weren't decomposing before your eyes. Especially the way that they can do certain things and make it unhinged, and it's the same kind of process with anything decomposing. Yeah, it's like I'm thinking in my head the pictures I've seen when I'm trying to reference certain things. I'm like, yeah, wish I could get those out of there. Yeah,
You
Jeff
can't
says,
unsee it.
yeah, exactly. Says, what societal need or fear does updating Mothman fulfill? That's a good question. I think like everything else, especially within the realm of story and the unknown, there's always a need to try to explain what we think is unexplainable. And sometimes maybe it actually is completely unexplainable and we're not able to even fathom what it could be. Or sometimes it is an over explanation for something that's very simple and we just can't get that good of a look at it. But as far as imposing our values or anything like that upon something like the Mothman, that is interesting how society does tend to do that just in general. I mean, we see it even happen all the time within story structure, especially comics or anything else that seems to get updated over time. Various religious figures, various myths and legends. You know, why do you think that is? Why do you think people have to constantly try to update these things as opposed to letting them be?
Well, in terms of the Mothman, first off, I'm going to say if you're going to go on the idea that he's a portent of something, it's trying to put meaning to something that is senseless. You know, like his first sighting, people for like what 6 months, I think it was, were seeing him, and then the bridge collapsed and nobody heard from him again. Now, was it that it was just mass hysteria leading up to it, and then they had something real to focus on? Or was he really, showing up as a herald to something bad? Who knows? But he seems to have originated as trying to find meaning in something that's senseless.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a purpose or there's a plan or there's something. This happened for a reason, and I think nowadays, because we get so overloaded with crises. I mean, in our modern day, we have a crisis every day. I'm not going to get into politics right now, but you just have to go to Twitter. You can find 10 different crises happening, either on like a personal level or on a global level. Something's happening. So having a portent of bad doesn't make sense anymore because every day you're going to see something bad. So I think that's why he's shifted to become more of a boogeyman monster, because that seems to be what resonates with people now, is that thing that you can't foresee or that you can't stop, is this boogeyman. And you can see that in movies, you can see that in popular culture, you can see that in um, um, uh, okay, I'm not going to get the term right. Creepypasta, Slender
Mm.
Man type things.
Mm-hmm.
These unstoppable forces that you can't affect. And Mothman seems to be shifting into that. So I think it's a psychological shift. Uh,
Yeah, it's strange how they've morphed into that, being these more like ethereal forces of nature
mhm.
that they're gonna do whatever they're gonna do regardless. Not that they're necessarily undiscovered beings. You know, like you said, there's more of a supernatural type paranormal element, especially that's imposed upon Mothman,
Mhm.
as opposed to like I don't know, Bigfoot. Bigfoot's
Yeah.
around. There's weird things that happen and things like that, but it's not necessarily like it's impending doom, or Bigfoot's the messenger of things to come, or whatever. Bigfoot's usually just kind of doing his thing. He's like a bear with some strange abilities, more or less, and he's just out there. It's not
And,
really anything past that.
and even Bigfoot has evolved over time. And I don't think it was planned. I think it's just as time progressed, his legend progressed and his legend changed. He went from being, I don't want to say scary, because he's never really been malicious in the legends,
Mm-hmm.
but he's definitely
It's been
a,
territorial though,
yeah,
definitely.
but that's
But
different.
that's it.
Territorial is
Yeah, it's
different.
different.
Or, a guardian of the forest and conservation, things like that. He was. I know there's been a lot of him being an avatar of the wilds and the forest. I mean, I think that was even part of it for that $6 Million Man episode that he was in. or even the Harry and the Hendersons TV show. But nowadays he's evolved to kind of be a friend. He's more friendly, he's more human, he's more personable. People attach themselves
Yeah,
to him
he
more.
got a better PR team.
Yeah, he's like I was out at I was out at the range earlier this week, and one of the regulars that I see there, he's got his Jeep completely decked out in Bigfoot friend, Bigfoot sightings. He's got a giant Bigfoot image on his spare tire. People here in Arizona love Bigfoot. They've embraced him as, like the same thing that like Californians do, where they have like the surfer on the back of their car. It's interesting how people have embraced Bigfoot as kind of more of a friend than this mythical creature.
Yeah, yeah. It is interesting how that's occurred,
Hmm.
especially where, I mean, I wonder how many people really have encountered what they absolutely 100% believe to be a
Hmm.
Bigfoot. So for there to be so much love over something that is largely considered a mythical figure like a Santa Claus or an Easter Bunny kind of a thing, for them to really feel an affinity towards that, it's interesting. I
Hmm.
wonder sometimes on that scope of it, because like with the whole thing that I was talking about before, where some people think it could just be like one, specifically one creature. I think there's many kinds of Bigfoot. I think there's many sorts of this kind of species. If it is to be real, if it is to exist, I think there are some with abilities that we can't really comprehend, and I don't know if that classification of Sasquatch or Bigfoot or whatever even would apply. They may seem to look or resemble what we would think is a Bigfoot, where it might be big in stature, but seems to do have these interdimensional kind of paranormal abilities in terms of energy and the ability to disappear and kind of go in and out of focus and causing EMF interruptions.
Hmm.
But then I think that there's the other factor of what it could be, and maybe it's an entirely different species that feels like it's an offshoot. It feels like it's the missing link. It feels like it's some kind of evolutionary neighbor to humanity. And I wonder if that's almost even within our own existence, our own DNA. Maybe we're thinking, like, yeah, that makes sense to me. And maybe that's
Hmm.
why there is such an affinity toward Bigfoot.
No, I think it makes sense. I mean, to go back to pop culture, are you familiar with the Boggy Creek creature movies?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The not the one that was done as a slasher film, but the two that were done by uh, oh, I can't remember what his name is. But the fact that he actually did like retold the stories and the legends, and he had, at least in the second film, um, people from that area who legitimately said that they had seen Boggy in his movie, and these people are like, yeah, he's just a part of this land, just like we are, and you just leave him alone, just like you would leave your neighbors alone, and everything will be fine. And I don't know. I found that a very endearing way to view it. Like they recognized he is something out of their control, but he's just part of the land like they are. So,
Yeah,
they just accept him. And that's wonderful.
yeah, exactly. It's interesting. Comics Odyssey says, thoughts on Ogopogo. I live near that one. Oh, look at that.
Ogopogo.
Yeah,
Let's
Ogopogo is
see.
kind of like it's like a Loch Ness monster kind of thing. It's a serpent.
Ah, do I have Ogopogo on my list here? Uh, let's see here. Sorry, I have pages and pages and pages of cryptids that I did little write-ups on years ago, and
I can't
Ogopogo
think
sounds
of
really familiar.
yeah, I can't think of many things about Ogopogo that have been featured in like film or shows or books or comics or anything like that. But there's a lot of stories and a lot of sightings of Ogopogo.
Let's see here. Which one's Ogopogo?
Yeah, the other part for me, going back 1 second while you look that up with the
Ah,
Sasquatch,
there
the
he is.
Bigfoot, that kind of a thing. There's so many
Hmm.
across the world, and everyone's got
Oh,
different names for it. You got the skunk ape, you got the yowie, you got the yeti,
hmm.
you got it's all over the place. And they all live in different terrains and in different environments, but they sort of all kind of act the same, similar kind of size, mannerisms, and things like that. But they all
Hmm.
sort of look also different too. Like they're all different species that have adapted for their region.
Well, going again back to pop culture, are you familiar with the Japanese film, the War of the Gargantuans?
I'm familiar by name, but I haven't seen it.
It's one of their kaiju series, but
Yeah.
it's mainly about these these giant ape men. And I always thought, okay, so they've got, we had King Kong, they have their gargantuans, they're otherwise known as, they were also called Titans, they were also called, um, yeah, I think it was just Titans. And I thought, okay, they had their version of it. I recently found out that they were actually based on one of the Japanese legends of a Bigfoot type creature that lives in their
Hmm.
mountains. And they decided to make this movie based on that. And I thought that was fascinating, that it's actually a legend that goes back hundreds of years.
Yeah. That's interesting. Whenever I see stuff like this too, I always think of the species that are now documented, but before were considered legend or whatever.
Hmm.
And I wonder if they'll ever find anything that even would resemble on that level. That it's like, oh, okay, it's a species of North American primate, which there are no, at least anyway, documented
Hmm.
North American species of primate. And I wonder if they'll ever find anything like that. And I think that's why it makes it so strange, because there's so many sightings and people go, well, where would a carcass be? Where would a body be? Someone had to kill someone accidentally and bring it in, or whatever. And yet there's all these sightings and all these reports, and everybody talks about it, but it's kind of almost like if it is real, it almost seems as if there's an understanding of you don't do that with them. Like, you don't just find a person and then bring them in and document them as, this is a new species, and you're like, no, that's not a new species. I don't
Hmm.
care how hairy they are, tall, or whatever. That's not how you do it.
You
um,
can't just drag them in.
yeah, yeah, and I almost wonder if there's like an old understanding, especially when they were first exploring this country. They must have been talking to natives that were like, "No, you just leave them alone."
Well, not only that, but to get into things like forensics, the argument has always been, well, where are the fossils? Where are the bones? Where are the whatever? It's like, do you know how quickly things disappear in the wilderness?
Oh,
Bugs,
yeah, yeah,
animals, weather,
they work fast.
yeah,
Yeah,
carcasses just, disappear. Like in the deserts out here, carcasses disappear within 24 hours. And I mean like gone, nothing left within 24 hours. So in like the woods where you have, fallen tree limbs, you have, underbrush, you have, foliage at the very least, of course, you're not going to find things unless you knew exactly where to go to find it. So if there is, Bigfoot or Big Feet, what's the plural?
I think it would be Bigfoots.
I
That
think it's
sounds
Bigfoots
right.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Um,
Bigfoot is like the name. You
yes.
know.
It makes sense that you're not going to necessarily find a carcass unless you know where to look. I mean, you wander through the woods, you're not gonna just stumble across the carcass of a deer or a bear unless, you know you're in the territory of. So,
Yeah, that's very true. That is very true. Let's see. Comics Odyssey is working on a comic that features Ogopogo. There you go.
mhm.
Very nice. But yeah, I know that there's all kinds of different things where people think there may be like a sturgeon or something else, and it doesn't follow the same kind of it just doesn't track in terms of the description.
Hmm.
And I just there's a lot of weird stuff. And again, there's stuff more and more coming out that there are passageways. There's little canals that go across and underneath. They did some kind of like a lidar thing a couple months back. I forget the exact specifics of it, but
Hmm.
that showed that there were a lot of canals that go towards and through the crust of the earth and go into areas where you could travel and go to wherever. So some of these things are, I mean, there's tremendous amounts of ocean life that just don't make any sense. Where they live, the temperatures they live at, the lack of sunlight, the lack of everything, the pressure, the tremendous pressure that they exist
Hmm.
in which it would crush and destroy, like impossible to understand pressures. That if we create something, we can't even create anything that can get that deep. And yet here there's like things that are around, and it's so strange. So it seems like it's possible that something survived, and if anything prehistoric is still thriving, I would honestly think it would be within the water.
The most likely place because that's the part of the world that we've explored the least.
Yeah.
Um, Real quick, you might find this fact interesting if you didn't already know it. The name Ogopogo comes from the album art of a popular song in 1924 featuring a small green fish man with big ears and antennae.
Hmm.
So, little
Interesting.
factoid for you.
Sounds like a creature from the Black Lagoon, kind of a thing.
Actually, it looks like a little gremlin thing, and the album
Okay.
art is him with a banjo. Let's see if I can't. Uh, yep. Okay. Let me share the. Can I share this link
Yeah,
with
yeah, you
you?
could share it.
Okay.
Did you want to share the screen, or you could
I
do
can
that
share this.
too?
I can do both. So yeah, let me share the screen. Let me move this over here to this page. Okay, and present. Share screen.
Grape Nuka Cola says the Fiji mermaid. Oh yeah.
Oh, the Fiji mermaid. Let's see. I don't think we know who created the original, but it was P.T. Barnum who had it on display.
Ogo Pogo.
Hmm.
Jeez, look at that guy. That's a that's an interesting Ogo Pogo.
Hmm. Yep, 1924.
He looks
So
like
that
he'd be some kind of a strange cereal mascot.
he does, doesn't he? But he's got the fish tail and everything.
Wow, that is look at his shoes.
Those are some amazing shoes.
He's a snappy dresser.
Hmm.
I had no idea. That is
So,
very interesting.
yeah,
Oh man, people.
but
Rachel says Ogo Pogo is just an oversized pike, I bet.
mhm.
You know, I that's the thing is there a tremendous amount of oversized pike in that area? I'm not entirely sure.
Well,
Let's see.
I do know that Canada has an awful lot of water creatures, and a lot of them definitely do seem to be you know giant fish of one flavor or another. So who knows? He very well may have just been a really, really big fish that got away.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna have Jason Orfalis on the show eventually. He does Octopus Cowboy, and I'm always
Oh,
wondering. I want to ask him if he's familiar with the Oklahoma octopus. You ever hear of
oh,
that? There's a couple of octopi
yeah.
that allegedly live or have lived in
Mm-hmm.
lakes, and I wonder if that was the inspiration for it. We'll have to ask him though when he comes on, because if so,
Probably.
he's got a cryptid book on his
Mhm.
hands,
Hey,
right?
timely, right?
Yeah. Let's see. Andy Gogo. I hear mummies are delicious.
Okay. I can go down that path. I can totally go down that path.
Maybe yummy mummy.
Well, corpse medicine is ancient, but the thing is the consumption of mummies for medicinal purposes was due to a mistranslation.
Oh, okay.
What it was the original text, because that text still exists. When properly translated, it's that you're supposed to eat the pitch or tar that washes up on the shores of the Black Sea, I believe it is. But that word sounds an awful lot like the Persian word for mummy, as in, dead
Oh,
bodies.
okay.
And they look the same because you're basically using you're using the pitch is a derivative of natron, which is the stuff that they use in order to dry out the mummies in Egypt. So the skin takes on the same tone or texture of that pitch that washes up on the shores. So they thought, oh, we're supposed to use the bodies of people that were mummified using this particular process. And thus began that trade and creating contemporary mummies that way too.
I
You
wonder
know,
how many people have eaten, just snap off a piece of
uh,
Egyptian jerky.
in a lot of people have done it, and corpse medicine actually was prescribed using specifically Egyptian mummies, was prescribed all the way into World War One. So people in the Victorian era, all the way into World War One, were consuming powdered corpses to cure various things.
Wow. And here I thought they were just grave robbing for some of the valuables.
Nope. Well, I mean, they were doing that too. It was also the novelty of it, and for firewood, they would burn the bodies for firewood. But I I did a lot of research into um, the mysticism and medicinal benefits of eating people. And I found that part very fascinating. It's something that people have done up until modern day. And of course, in certain third world countries, they still engage in corpse medicine and in ritualistic cannibalism.
Well,
But
hell, even upper echelon first world.
yeah, yeah, they do.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Not my cup of tea.
Oh, I'm weird. Yeah, you want to start getting into dead people, I'm your girl. So I've got all sorts of information on that, but that's not tonight's topic. Although I will say you were talking about creatures that we thought would were mythological that might actually be real. Um, if you look at the pillars of Ishtar in Babylon, there's that weird creature that looks like a snake but has legs.
Yeah.
They're now fairly certain that that thing did exist, that that was a real creature, and it's just the sands of time, the desert, the everything. It doesn't really create an environment for making fossils. It's very hard to find fossils in that area just in general, I mean, unless it's a prepared burial. So they know for a fact that there's a lot of species that the Babylonians, the Egyptians, and even like the Greeks wrote about that don't exist anymore, but that they're fairly certain were real, and now they think that this was one of those creatures.
Wow. Well, that very well could be possible. I mean, there's so many things within that region
Hmm.
where I mean they can only dig up so much desert.
Exactly. Well, like in Egyptian hieroglyphs, you'll often see a horned snake, and they thought that that was artistic license. They've now come to the conclusion that no, these horned snakes actually did exist. It's just they're extinct now.
Man, that's interesting. That reminds me of Well, there's all kinds of things in that region, just
Mm-hmm.
across all of the Sahara. I mean, just the fact that it used to be a lush terrain. You're talking about like Younger Dryas period and all this other stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and just going back to even the whole the one Bigfoot. But I really think that there's all kinds of species and everywhere else, and it's all proliferated across the whole Earth. But even something like Atlantis, I know this isn't cryptids, but I think there's probably hundreds of Atlantis-like civilizations.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't just one Atlantis.
I know the Japanese have one. There's supposedly one off of Florida. That so yeah, they're everywhere.
Oh
And
yeah.
I recently actually just found out about one where there was an island off the coast of England that if you go under the water, you can see the shelf where a
Yes.
landmass could have been,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's not there anymore.
Yep.
So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. And there's these across the Earth. There's just like hundreds of sunken cities,
Hmm.
and giant megalithic structures that are carved, places that are they have steps, there's towers and beams and all kinds of things. It's crazy.
Hmm.
It's interesting how much we I don't I don't know. It's like people can't. Maybe they're just not taught. Maybe they aren't looking into it. I don't know. But I think a lot of people are aware and are fascinated by this kind of a thing. But it's interesting to me how so many people within, I don't know, I guess mainstream everything are absolutely refusing to believe that there be anything of that nature other than what we see before us or what's left or whatever kind of ruins are there, and then that's it. There couldn't be more than that. There's nothing underneath certain regions. Even the concept of like, oh, North America would have just been mostly this. There's no architecture, there's no ruins, there's no anything else, there's nothing that they could have possibly found. But then meanwhile, if you look into it, there's tons of things, but people don't really necessarily. You think ruins, you mostly think Europe, you think the Middle East, you think that kind of a thing. You don't really think too much about America, Canada, Mexico, even though there's a ton of them. And it's such a shame. It really is. I think that there's so many things that are right in front of us that we've either chosen to ignore or we've decided to cover up or take and remove and put it somewhere else. I mean, the Smithsonian's notorious for that.
I agree 110%. And I think that part of it is when we entered into the information age, we stopped being in the exploration age.
Yeah, that's a
We're not
great
expecting,
observation.
yeah, we're not expecting the next new thing. We're expecting, okay, what's the information? And since it's at our fingertips, we think that what's there is permanent. It's all that there's going to be. And some people I know get annoyed when there's new information or they discover something new, unless it's, you know, in certain wheelhouses. But we don't have that age of wonder anymore. That age of looking into new
Yeah, like all the
things.
questions have been answered. And if you
Hmm.
do ask a question about something that hasn't been figured out yet, they find a way to cast you into the cornfield.
Hmm. Well, like to use another example on another topic, disclosure. Nobody cared. Nobody. It's like, yes, there's aliens. Like, and it's like, okay, so are they going to like, are they friendly and they've got glowing fingers, or are they gonna, ram an ovipositor down my throat? Are they friendly? Or are they
Yeah,
not
there
friendly?
should be 1,000 follow-up questions, and it's just sort of like shrug.
It's just kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah, tell me something I don't know, and I think that it comes to that with a lot of things where people are jaded. They nothing has that sense of awe anymore to people, and cryptids are fun for me because it still harkens back to wonder and discovery. finding new things. Like one of my favorite cryptids that I'm to this day is just like, what am I looking at? Is oh the something walkers or the something striders. It was videotaped in California from the 80s, where you just see these weird white legs
Oh
walking.
yes, I saw that. That's
Yeah,
insane. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's just
just
like,
like legs with like no top torso or anything.
yeah, it's like, what is that? That's wonderful. This is great. This is something new to discover. And whether it's somebody who is really good at video editing, or they really did capture something strange, I don't
Yeah,
care. It's the fact that it was so well done. It still to this day has people baffled. And we don't have that anymore because with CG you can create everything. You
yeah.
know,
It kind of does
um,
look like walking sweatpants. It's very
yeah,
strange.
actually, I thought they looked like this old I think it was a Silly Symphony cartoon from like the 30s.
Yeah, I know. I
Uh,
know what you're referencing. Yeah,
yeah,
they did
okay.
look like that. Yeah,
But it doesn't matter. They're weird. And the fact that people to this day, even with all of our technology to be able to analyze film, we can't say what those are. I love that. And we don't have enough of that.
yeah. It goes back to what I was talking about with ocean life. We've kind of accepted that there are things that look incredibly alien
Mm-hmm.
and non-terrestrial that live within the water.
Mm-hmm.
But on land, we can't seem to grasp around that. It just seems like no, it has to have like two or four legs and be of a relative size and structure. And when something like that kind of comes along, if that's legitimate, which I mean, if it's not, wow, kudos
Mm-hmm.
to the person who faked that. But it's not skinwalkers. It's not
No.
skinwalkers. Uh, I don't know how to describe it other than if you guys wanted to look it up or anything like that. I
Let's
don't
see
know
if I
the
can't
word.
pull it up.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to be able to find it. If you do, let me know, especially if you find either the video or a picture. But yeah, it's crazy. The first time I saw that, I was like, "What on earth? What on earth?"
Yeah, I
Because it
was
was
so
like
baffled.
surveillance. It was like a camera, like a security
Mm-hmm.
camera picked it up. It's very
Uh,
weird.
no, I'm not finding it. I'm getting the Phantom, the Billy Zane
Oh,
movie.
okay.
But oh well.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see here. Our cryptids, our skinwalkers, cryptids. I would, man.
That one's tough. I think it depends.
Yeah, I think when you see it, you might think it is a cryptid, but it wouldn't be. I mean, the explanation wouldn't be that it would be a cryptid. Just where it's generally, it's a shaman that's been
Yeah.
practicing in the dark magic and energies, and has kind of transformed into this thing. But I think when you see it, you might think, yeah, oh, that's a cryptid.
Mhm.
Like a dire wolf or some kind of unexplainable, odd creature. But it's not. I don't think it would technically be defined as cryptids. I've had this been asked before about Santa Claus, and Santa Claus would not be a cryptid, but his
No.
reindeer would be a cryptid.
Yeah, I
So
would agree with that.
yeah, so Santa's more just like I guess what a legend, a myth.
Mhm.
But yeah, he's not an unclassified animal or creature, even if he's not proven necessarily to physically exist. Yeah, it's usually falling more under the realm of not people, not anything of that kind of a humanoid nature. Like aliens aren't. I don't
Mhm.
think so. I don't think aliens would be considered cryptids.
No, no.
Yeah,
But the coyote men, which are not skinwalkers and they're not lycanthropes, they would be cryptids.
yeah, yeah. It's like Dog Man, like that kind of a
Yeah.
thing. Yeah,
So yeah, if you see a humanoid lichen type creature, it's like, okay, what are you dealing with? Is it a skinwalker? Is it a werewolf? Is it a dog boy? What are you looking at?
yeah, yeah. Uh, this sounds right. Is it the Fresno Nightcrawler?
Yes, that's what it is. Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good job, depressive sophomore. Look at that. Put him on
Yeah.
the case.
Yes. Thank you.
No, I didn't say Santa's not real. Santa's real, all right? But
Santa's real.
in terms of being physically provably real, Santa's clever.
He's wily. He's been around for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. So Santa's absolutely real.
Mm-hmm. Of
Yeah,
course.
exactly. That's another reason why he can't be considered a cryptid,
Mm-hmm.
because
Well,
he's
that and
real.
he's too humanoid in nature.
Yeah,
He wears
absolutely.
furs. He's not furry.
Exactly, exactly. He's a magical, mythical human. Depressive
Mm-hmm.
sophomore says, just looked for walking legs cryptid. Yeah, so
Ah,
if you guys want to check out Fresno Nightcrawler,
yes.
which sounds like a really bad modern Marvel take on Nightcrawler.
Yeah, it does.
He's the Fresno Nightcrawler, dude.
Oh dear God.
He's eating tacos and burritos while
Oh,
he goes in and out of certain dimensions.
oh dear
Oh
God.
boy. They're just updating him for a modern audience.
Like
But yeah,
everything.
but that thing is crazy. Yeah, when I first saw that, I don't know how anyone can't have the like. Just you look at it, and go, what the hell is that? What is that?
Well,
Wow.
like, I grew up watching, do you remember the show Sightings?
Yes, I love
Yeah,
sightings.
I love Sightings. So I grew up watching that. I grew up watching a lot of things. So I will admit I kind of became a little jaded. I'm always looking for, where's the tell that it's fake? And I saw the Fresno Nightcrawlers and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm looking at.
Yeah, like I said, if it's a fake, it's a hell of a forgery. Holy smokes.
Yeah, it's like I will buy that man a beer if it is a fake.
Yeah, kudos to you. It's not just you threw a hubcap in the air and then took a
Yeah,
picture.
exactly. This is not a pie tin.
Exactly. Um, so some of my favorite cryptids, obviously, and I'm not going to talk about my own, which would be King Cryptid, of course.
Mm,
But some of my favorite cryptids that have appeared within the realm of culture. Obviously, there's all kinds of monsters and creatures that have been in comics and movies, in film, that kind of a thing.
hmm
But I really love, and I don't know if we can classify this as a cryptid,
Okay.
but because I guess he would be considered technically extraterrestrial. But I think when we first would come across it, we would probably think it's a cryptid. Would be the predator.
Predator 1 or Predator 2? Because Predator
One.
1, Predator 1, I can see it.
Yeah, when he's in the
Um,
jungle and you don't quite know. And I
yeah,
would think we would mistake that for a cryptid at first until we
uh,
learned more.
especially, when, because God, that film did an amazing job of the build up. And when people are first getting knocked off, you don't know if you're dealing with something that's supernatural or science fiction. You know,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
don't really know if it's technology or what. So yeah, a weird creature in the jungle. Well, God, how many stories came out of Vietnam of weird ass creatures that are, invisible that hunt you in the night and,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
grab your men. I mean, there's a million and one stories like that. So yeah, at least that section until you have the reveal, I totally would say, yeah, that would be, cryptid, that would be legendary, that would be not myth, but definitely in the realm of WTF.
Yeah, yeah. I really wish that in the first cryptid that they just left that first 30 seconds or so out
Mm,
when you see that there is something that's going to Earth. Because
mm.
the first time I was lucky, the first time I saw cryptid predator was I think the first 10 minutes into the film I had missed, like it was on TV.
Hmm.
and it's already where Arnold Schwarzenegger's meeting uh, I want to say Apollo Creed. Good grief, Carl Weathers.
Hmm.
And so I already had skipped all of that as a kid, and I just went into it, and then all of a sudden it really hits you. But I wish that they had left that first minute or so out. I don't want
Mm.
no one should if you go in there, especially like wow, what a reveal. But giving you like that little hint that there's something that came to Earth already puts you on the path. I think of okay, there's something strange that's gonna be that's not quite what we think it's gonna exist terrestrially, and I think that is kind of I don't know. That's just me. I love the movie, absolutely do, but I always felt like if I called the shot on that film, I would not have put that scene. It gives away a little too much, and what a great reveal at the end to discover that no that thing's an alien.
Well, I think because of, I mean, I'm not 100% certain, but I think that was an addition after the fact because
It
that
feels
film,
like it.
well, that film was in production hell. And,
Yeah.
just how long it took them to finish it and, how much they had to change the script and other things. I think what it was the studios were worried that audiences would be confused as to what was going on if you didn't have that little tell at the beginning. And so that's why they put it in there.
Yeah,
Because I'm
it
with you.
feels like that.
It's structured like you're not supposed to know. You're in the thick of it with them as to, what the hell is going on. Sort of like with John Carpenter's The Thing, where
Yeah.
you're in it with them, where you see the dog coming and it's like, okay, this guy's trying to shoot the dog. Why?
Yeah, yeah. You don't really understand until it's too late.
Hmm.
Because at
So,
first you're like, wow, these guys suck. Leave that poor dog alone.
like, okay, this guy's gone nuts. Okay.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm with you. I think it would be better removing that part, but, I just pretend. I just enjoy the film as it is.
Yeah, yeah. Once you see it, that's it. It's done
Mhm.
and over. But I was really lucky that I got into it. The first time I ever saw it, I missed the first 10 minutes. I got it on TV and just watched the rest. And it was like, wow, this is crazy. And then when I watched the whole complete thing and not on TV, and you see especially that opening, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Why would they do that? It doesn't need that. It's so much more
Mhm.
effective without it. And you get the whole progress of the way that the narrative flows is perfect and it's
Mhm.
engaging. So it's not like it's a snooze fest. So you need to put like the alien element in there to make people go, okay, I'm waiting for the alien part.
Mhm.
But yeah, it totally feels like something the studio was like, yeah, put something in the beginning that makes people think it's an alien.
I'm like, okay.
But yeah, yeah, I agree. It seems more like if you first came upon it, you would probably think it's a cryptid of some kind, and then you realize later on it's not. And I
Mhm.
think I think even that's a lot of stuff that happens too, vice versa with both aliens and cryptids, where I think people are thinking they're seeing a cryptid and it is an alien, and then people are thinking they're seeing an alien and it's a cryptid. And it's the same thing too. I think a lot of the time with ghosts, with other kinds of paranormal and
Mhm.
unexplained things that people are reporting, like we talked about Mothman before, how
Mhm.
that even seems like a description for all kinds of various myths, legends, and creatures throughout all of civilization.
No, I completely agree. I mean, you look at a couple of stories from the golden age of spiritualism, like the the guy who swore that his house was haunted by a demon that had possessed a mongoose, and it was talking to him through the walls. And I believe they came to the conclusion that he was throwing his voice to make it sound like the mongoose was talking, but it didn't matter. It was the fact that it was a talking mongoose that was possessed by a demon. You
Yeah.
know, that is, in the time frame that occurred in the late 1800s, that was the beginning of the age where you're going from, um, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Myth, legend, uh, magic into the realm of science. And those things were dovetailing on each other. You know, things like you get the telephone. Well, it's magic that you can talk to somebody from, on the other side of the country or even later on the other side of the world. Why wouldn't you be able to talk to the dead or other things? It's blurring those lines between science and myth. And cryptids, I think, are the last remnant of that.
Yeah, yeah, it really seems like it. It really does. And I think there's. Oh, what is this? Rachel says, Pete and Kat, have both you seen the second launch of SpaceX Starship? It was pretty awesome how much farther it got. Did it blow up again?
Oh no, did it blow
I
up?
don't know.
No, I admit I've not been
I
online
haven't.
at all.
Yeah, I haven't. I don't know what the hell. Honestly, I look at what Elon's doing with that, and I'm like, what kind of massive government cover up is occurring with that? All of SpaceX to me feels like a gigantic, like even crazier than what Robert Bigelow was doing with aerospace. It just feels like a gigantic FOIA cover up. Like, let's put everything crazy into this portion of it, and this guy's gonna go to Mars, and he's
You,
gonna
you know,
keep doing these things, and we're gonna bury a lot of black budget stuff into this company.
my dad worked for the Aerospace Corporation.
Oh, no way!
Yeah, he built optics for satellites, some spy satellites. He also built optics for the Predator and Reaper drones. And I find it interesting that I think it was Congress was going after Elon. They're like, yeah, we want your SpaceX project because they have a program called Sea Launch, or they used to have a program called Sea Launch. Are you familiar with it?
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah, where it's basically you move your boat out to where you want it in the ocean and then you launch. I mean, you can launch anywhere in the world that way. So it's like, why are you guys doing this?
yeah,
So,
yeah. And it just feels like this isn't, at least not publicly anyway. It doesn't feel like there's any new tech being developed. There's no
no.
antigravitics. There's nothing else going on. It's just, didn't we figure out how to put a rocket into space already?
Hmm.
Like, it just, this is
No,
very strange.
no, you're very accurate on that. Space exploration has stagnated as far as technology goes. I mean, there's
Yeah,
been little leaps, but it's not what it should be. When you consider we went from, the Wright brothers to walking on the moon, and
yeah.
what have we done since
Like,
then?
yeah, if our average smartphone is more technologically advanced than stuff that they were putting inside of the rockets to get to the moon. Like,
This is 50 million times smarter than the computers used to take us to the
yeah,
moon.
yeah. It just doesn't make any sense. And then the propulsion behind it and everything else. Beampad says Elon's just making giant billboards in space. He's doing something. I can't figure that guy out. I think the like every single thing. I got a really crazy, crazy, crazy theory about Elon. It feels like
Okay.
I feel like he's some kind of a not a clone, but almost like a manipulated genetic offspring of Werner von Braun.
Von Braun was a dick.
Well, they look very similar, and they behave in a very similar manner because they're kind of both the same kind of dick.
Okay. No, no, no. I can totally see that. You know the
It's
Tom
like
Lehrer
that
song
Batman.
about him, right?
Yeah, yeah, like Elon is Werner Beyond. Like the way Batman Beyond, you got Terry McGinnis, and he's basically like Batman's offspring without being Batman's offspring. And it didn't know about it and that kind of a thing because they're trying to recreate that individual. I get that vibe sorta, and it's the craziest, weird, stupid thing. But it's just I'm not like 100% serious about it. But I feel like it's so strange. Everything about Elon makes no sense to me. He feels like a cryptid has been discovered because he's doing things that doesn't seem like they should be able to happen, and he shouldn't be allowed to do them, but yet he's doing them, and then yet at the same time, no one gets to be that rich and powerful without being allowed to be in this day and age. So it just
But
seems like there's so many things that are happening within his sphere that someone somewhere, if they wanted to, would easily be able to shut him down from that, unless, of course, they're benefiting from it.
well, also keep in mind, Elon got to where he is because every single time he's been willing to risk it all. I mean, just how many different ventures, if they didn't pan out, he'd be, holding a cardboard sign on the street.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a little too. It's a little. It just seems like that's just. It doesn't really add up too much to me. I don't know. There's stuff about it when I've looked into it. I'm like, that doesn't really pass the smell test. Someone somewhere, like he has made many Faustian deals, is what it feels like.
I like Johnny Slackton's comment. I like your boys from Brazil reboot theory.
Yeah, yeah. You feel me. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Rachel says Starship is doing what no other rocket has and being fully reusable. I get
Hmm.
that, but then at the same time, it's just it seems like to what end? To what end? Really? Like when we think about that. Even the idea of going to Mars and things like that. I know we're kind of going on a big time tangent here. But all of it does feel like we're in that age of forced exploration. And the only reason I
Hmm.
say forced is because there's so much on this planet that we're not aware of in any way, shape, or form, or at least being told about. So even if there are facets of it, if there's groups of people or companies or whatever that may be that are aware of it, the knowledge is not being spread throughout.
But at the same time, there are so many hurdles nowadays that get in the way of real exploration. I mean, for one thing, it's no longer, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to see what I can see and then come back with all sorts of cool stuff. It's, I have a
Absolutely.
theory on what I'm going to find out there, and I'm only going to bring back what fits that narrative because that's how I get the grant money. Or we can't go in the oceans because environmentalists get in the way. Now, yes,
Yeah,
I am
yeah.
all for protecting the environment and being mindful of that, but at the same time, there's a point where it becomes stupid. Um, and they haven't done that to space yet. So space is
Yeah.
really the last frontier because it's the only thing we can explore because nobody owns it.
Yeah. It's a frightening proposition though, because I feel like we've screwed up in so many ways here. We're not mature enough to go out into space. We shouldn't be there yet.
Well, no, I like the Heinlein mentality of, Heinlein mentality and the mentality of, the old school explorers, the ones who decided, let's get on a boat and just sail west and see what we run into. And yeah, we may die doing it, but we're gonna do it, damn it. That spirit, that human spirit of, screw it, there's a barrier and I'm going to break through it even if it kills me. We need that. We need that back because otherwise we're stagnating.
And that's the
So,
part that really makes me think that I don't think that it is a human trait. And I know this is again it's
mm,
going somewhere else. I really
yep.
think that it's because whatever the hell we came from, because it's such a weird you go back and back and back in the fossil record, you go back throughout the history of humanity,
Hmm.
and it feels like we as how we are just showed up. Evolutionarily it makes no sense. It's such a very fast evolution for human beings to get to where we are from where we are first being charted on the fossil record. If
Only if you're not taking into consideration that we bred with the Neanderthals.
Yeah, but even with that, it's one of those. If we emerged relatively around the same times and we kind of crossbred, it just feels like how did we emerge at that point?
There's a current theory that we are actually a lot older than we think we are. It's just that um, we did a lot of crossbreeding with the Neanderthals, and it took a long time until we got um, Homo sapien sapien from that crossbreeding over and over and over and over and over again. But since we're looking at things, hundreds of thousands of years ago, fossil evidence is hard to find. So,
Yeah, yeah, but at the same time, there's been things that have been here for so long, and there's nothing that we can point to at this point yet that are even close to humanoid on the planet that do the things humans do.
no, that is true.
And it seems like there's a part of our let's go and see what the hell's over on the horizon. Let's explore. Let's figure out the possibility of whatever. It seems like that came from somewhere else. That instinct came from somewhere else.
I am going to throw a weird curveball at you with that. Um, yes, it is true. We are the only species on this planet that, figured out droids, that figured out, movies and television and launching rockets to the moon and other things like that. But there are other species that have had um, the potential. And then there are ones that have grown up in tangent with us that are still evolving with us. And I'm specifically talking rats. And that may sound weird, but if you look at rats and you look at the experiments with rats, I mean, I also own one. I have a pet rat over there. And just seeing these little guys in my own house, they have evolved along with us. They've got a rat that plays Doom. They've got rats that can smell bombs and can smell melanoma. And
That's
these,
bad for us, though. We've done a lot of bad things to rats.
that is true, and that is something that's been scaring the scientific community is that they are slowly coming to the conclusion that rats are actually a lot smarter than we've given them credit for in the past, and there's a big movement in the scientific community to move away from doing experimentation with rats, or at least experimentation that can cause harm. The other thing that's weird is we've always been told that chimps are only 5% away from us, yet we don't use chimp organs for transplants or other things like that. The human body rejects them. We do for pigs, and we grow human noses and ears on rats for transplants with little to no rejection. I mean, think about that. So, yes, there's no other species that's doing what we do, but there are species that are moving in tangent with us.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, too, is that as we evolve, they evolve. And that's
Hmm.
why I'm very curious as to, well, we must have evolved alongside something else that
Hmm.
was here before us. Someone had to teach us something.
There was
Um,
the Neanderthals. They're fairly certain it was the Neanderthals. Now, where did they get it from? Who knows?
yeah, right? You keep on going back and back and back. It's very
Hmm.
interesting. I know, yeah. It's a bit of a mind-blowing thing, you know.
We'll find the black box one day that's sending signals out past Jupiter, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that might even be the whole look constantly towards the future, space, et cetera, as opposed to really developing and looking towards what we have here, because maybe it's a little bit more, it makes us feel safer to look towards the future as opposed to looking towards the past and going like,
Hmm.
oh, wow, we really don't know much about who we are and where we've come from. And maybe we do know a lot about where we come from. That's why we're looking towards space. So who knows?
Hmm.
Comics for Life says, why do you think that cryptids have a tendency to meet opposition for credibility despite the logical base of the probability of there being an unexplainable creature? It shouldn't sound so far-fetched. Yeah, I think it's kind of like a lot of the different things about human beings is that we are always uncertain of the unknown, and we come up with various explanations for it until eventually it just kind of smacks you in the face a couple hundred times and you
Mm-hmm.
can't ignore it anymore. But it's such a slow process. It takes time, and it takes, even sometimes, to put it bluntly, it takes generations of people to die out. Like a lot of the time, even with progress, with people, with various concepts and sciences and ways of being, it doesn't necessarily come with just because all of a sudden everyone got on board one day. It more or less becomes because the various gatekeepers died out. So it's strange. I think it's like within our nature. What do you think?
Um, I think that, again, because we are now in an information age, um, we are, so in the mindset of, pictures or it didn't happen, proof or it didn't happen. And we so want there to be absolute, concrete, definitive, yes or no, this is a definite thing that exists. And I think people have lost the mindset of no proof yet, or yes, this takes time, this, you
We're
still have to
not
look into it,
conclusive enough
or
yet.
yeah, not
Yeah.
conclusive enough yet, or again, you can have, I know it's not cryptids, but you can have phenomena like the Phoenix lights, the lights in the sky that were on the news. Thousands of people saw these things. It was,
Yeah,
there's
yeah, in real
videotape
time, yeah.
recordings, news, and yet still people don't believe that it happened. Why? Well, what is it? What is that thing? Well, we don't know, but it's a recorded phenomenon. We know it's something that did happen. We don't know what. It's like, well, you don't know what it is, so, obviously it was fake. It's like, no, there, you can't have all the answers sometimes. Sometimes it's just enough to know you have people across this country and across this planet who have seen a Bigfoot walk across, and no, they weren't drunk. These are creditable people who have seen this. That there are people who have seen Mothman. That there are people who have, experienced these things. You don't need to have a reality TV recording going 24/7 on everything.
Yeah, exactly. And what's even funnier is we're going to get to a point where everything is recorded, for better or
Hmm.
worse. And what are we going to discover at that point?
Well, though, then the problem is what you see is not what you saw.
Yeah,
Because that's another problem that does happen with videotape, is what you see is not what you saw. You're looking at it from one perspective, one point of view, or again, things can be doctored.
absolutely. Yeah, as we're seeing more and more with the
Hmm.
proliferation of technology. Let's see here. Our giants cryptids. Um, I think they could be mistaken as cryptids, and then once we realize what they are, then they're no longer a cryptid.
Hmm.
But I think they definitely can be classified at first as a cryptid. And yes, Frederick, yeah, in the digital age, the technology age, things can be erased.
Hmm.
Yep.
That too. So, reality is still subjective.
Yeah.
No matter how hard we try desperately to make it concrete.
Yeah. Man. Well, it was a very fascinating conversation tonight. As far as all these cryptids go and how they impact our culture and the story ideas that people get from them and the way they just kind of spark the imagination.
Hmm.
It really is like a chicken or the egg scenario, you know. Were the cryptids here, or do we create them, and how is that fueling over and over? Is it creating a feedback loop of storytelling and creativity? It's interesting, and again, it seems like it's a human trait as far as we can tell,
Hmm.
until we're able to have a verbal kind of understanding and communication with the other life forms on this planet. And man, that would be amazing if we could. The stuff that they could tell us about, holy smokes!
Hmm.
But that's funny. Is that these things, these creatures, they're a part of us,
Hmm.
and we put them in all kinds of things, and we love them, we fear them, we hate them, we wish night and day for them to be right in front of us and exist. It's funny. It really is.
Hmm. No, it is. And there's something that speaks to us about these things. And uh, actually, some things I kind of hope we never get definitive proof because, oh God, I was reading an article about, somebody had said, well, why don't we have, these, mythical creatures, legends, or other things like that anymore? And the answer was because we keep finding actual species and immediately categorizing them, putting them in a catalog, dissecting them, taking all these pictures, and it's taking all the fun out of it, really, you know. And I think that that's part of it. I legitimately hope that we never definitively discover if there's a Bigfoot, because the first thing they're going to do is dissect him
Oh
and
yeah, I can't
display him
imagine.
somewhere.
Exactly. And if they already have been doing that, uh, please don't take it out on the majority of us. Good grief. I hope I hope they have localized vengeance.
Hmm.
Be very targeted with your vengeance, cryptids
Exactly.
of the world, and future very intelligent animal and wildlife. Please understand that the vast majority of us are unknowing and unwilling participants in your torture and destruction.
Well, like there's so many lake monsters, and how many of them the locals will celebrate the monster, but if you say, "Yeah, I'm gonna go hunt it," they're like, "Oh no, 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 let it be," you know.
Yeah,
And yeah,
exactly.
you could argue they don't want it debunked to ruin their tourism, but at the same time, whether it's real or not, just let it be. It's not hurting anybody, to say that there's a creature in the lake, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and having a respect
Hmm.
for it, you know, because
Exactly.
Lion Mill says if they dissect Bigfoot, I'm blaming Pete directly. Don't you dare! Don't you dare! I don't want Bigfoot being harmed.
No.
I don't want anything being harmed. I'm not even that comfortable with all of the different things that have honestly they've helped to save people's lives. But man, if I had the choice and someone was like, Pete, we're gonna give you this life saving treatment or surgery, and I'm like, okay, well, how did that come about? Well, we tortured and experimented about 1,000 animals to do it. I'll be like, don't give that to me. Just let me die. The karmic retribution on my soul. I don't need that. Just let me go. It's my time. The universe is calling me back. I'm gonna go wherever I gotta go. I don't need that on me. But that's me personally.
Mhm.
Whatever anyone else chooses to do, that's on them. But anyway, man, oh man, Kat, thank you so much for being here tonight. This was a great conversation, and I'm gonna have to have you on again so we can dive deeper into this because you're a wealth of knowledge with this stuff. I mean, I'm
Oh,
learning things from you where I feel like sometimes I'm not hearing anything new, and I'm hearing things that are new from
oh,
you, and that's interesting.
cool. Thank you. I would absolutely love to come on again. I love having these chats. This has just been an absolute blast, and I love talking about this. Well, because again, most people they don't. They take it too seriously. It's too much, Bigfoot it doesn't exist, Bigfoot's not real, or they're too much into it's like, yeah, Bigfoot is totally real and I'm gonna go catch me a Sasquatch. It's like, it's like, okay. No, well, like, no, there's Okay, I do have to say one more thing before we go. I'm probably keeping you. I live within 15 minutes of the Superstition Mountains here
Oh,
in
okay.
the Phoenix area,
Yeah.
and I was seeing Bigfoot everywhere when I moved out here. So I asked somebody, tell me about why is Bigfoot? I didn't think Bigfoot came to Arizona, and they're like, oh yeah, he lives in the mountains over there. I'm like, you really believe that? It's like, yeah, we have, there's documented evidence from the 1800s, from the gold rush era, of there being Bigfoots in those mountains. Like, okay, I had no clue, and it is serious out here. People leave them alone though. People
Mm-hmm.
believe that they are there. People respect them. People don't go in their territory, but they believe that they're there. It's like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. A part of me even wonders, are we getting and this is again being posed as all these things exist, they're real, they're
Hmm.
here, and this is maybe even a reason as to why there is such like a unanimous respect in some way. I
Hmm.
almost wonder if there's some kind of telepathy that's occurring, that they're putting that thought of just let us be, just respect, just leave us alone, we'll leave you alone, like using like a Jedi mind trick on us, in terms of like, just let's just do our thing and remain separate and then let
Hey,
it
if
be.
that's all they're doing, that's
And
fine.
that's fine by me. But it is interesting how that is generally the message.
Hmm.
I haven't come across anyone anyway who is like, no, we're gonna find all the Bigfoots and we're gonna kill them all or drag them in, and we're gonna enslave them or whatever it is. I haven't come across anyone or in anything that has expressed that sentiment, at least not in a serious way. And it's interesting to me how that is.
Most I've heard is put it in a zoo.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like we're gonna turn them into a food source. We're gonna factory
No.
farm Bigfoot.
No, no, no. I don't think anybody wants a Bigfoot jerky.
Yeah, yeah, Bigfoot burgers. You
No.
know, it's interesting.
Probably be stringy.
Yeah, I would imagine so. All right, everybody, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. This was a really fun conversation. It's always a great time when Kat's on the show. I'm going to have her back on for a third time. I've got Ishi coming on
Yep.
Tuesday, so that'll be fun talking to him. I'm going to talk to him about aliens and UFOs. So, like, you guys are great. You guys are like the paranormal couple I could have on the show.
Oh God. Again, you want to talk spiritualism, ghosts, things like that. I have tons of information on that. So
Fantastic. Yeah, I'll have to do this again. Absolutely.
cool.
Everybody, take it easy. Have a wonderful night. Kat, thank you again so much for being here. Really appreciate your time and your conversation. And everybody else in the chat, too, thank you guys as well. You guys had some really great comments and some awesome questions, too, tonight. Really appreciate it. Other than that, I will see you guys tomorrow night. I'll be back at 9 o'clock Eastern with Shane Davis. He'll be on the show. And till then, everybody, have a great night. Thank you for being here. And I hope you all have an even better tomorrow. See you guys.
Good night.